I have finally finished the second set of drawings for the carving patterns I use, and this short video will show you some of the details in them. I want to begin, of course, by thanking Jeff Lefkowitz, who did all the design work with my drawings, and he turned it all into these pages, and to our friend Curtis Buchanan for the inspiration in the first place. This set follows on the first set that I did, in focusing on carved work from Devon, England, and Ipswich, Massachusetts, in mostly the second half of the 17th century. And this is 5 pages of patterns and step-by-step instruction on how to carve these designs. I'll take them page by page and show you around so you can see what's involved in this set. This is the first page, and it has a piece called the Tulip pattern. It's just a name I gave it. We don't know what they're called in the 1600s, but it's this repeating design that's based on some diagonal lines, then with a flower shape pointed up and then down and repeating across. So the page starts out with step-by-step of how to draw it, really, whether you're going to draw it on paper first or carve it with the tools, and then looks at a couple of finished patterns, one of which is based on a rectangle to there, and the other based on a square, as the step-by-step is. So 3/4 of this page is all about that one pattern, which I've used a lot. There's a piece of it here in the shop, but it's all covered up with stuff. I've used it as a box front. I've used it as the top rail in furniture before, which is where I see it as well. So you can adapt it lots of different ways. And then filling out the page is a piece that I did as a muntin in a joined chest, a vertical framing piece. Could easily do it as a box front as well, or any horizontal or vertical panel. And just some real basic geometry to it with these flower shapes inside a diamond. And that relates to something that's in that first set that I did. So which tools to use? That's a question I always get. And I think now I finally have a satisfactory answer to it, thanks to Jeff. We kicked around a couple of ideas of how to designate the shapes of the tools, the degree of curvature, what in the trade is called the sweep of the tool. And I had seen a chart done by the group at Hans Carlsen's shop in Sweden, where they represent them as the segment of the circle and then the width of the tool. So the circle is the sweep, and the width, of course, is just the distance across the tool. This unmarked modern English gouge in this new reckoning is 1 3/4 by 1, and that means it is part of a circle that is 1 3/4. So I marked the gouge into a block of wood and then used a circle template like this and went back and forth, showed these all to Jeff, and he came up with this little legend here that we have put in this set, but we'll also make as a free download PDF that you can get on my blog. So you can see what tools I use. That doesn't mean these are magic carving tools. It means they're what I use to make these patterns. And if you have something close to them, you can make patterns close to this. It's a little hard for me to see what these look like in the camera. But so this is page 2, and it focuses mostly on a piece we call a decorated S scroll. in the first set, there were a number of S scrolls, a very basic sort of leafy design with an S as its skeleton. And here it has these sort of bulbous shapes that run through the spine of that S. I show you how to lay that out with a V-tool or gouges. It's mostly freehand with some center lines. And then a couple different ways to finish it off. So a chance to elaborate on something from that first set. Then the bottom right-hand half of this is a repeating sort of interlaced series of circles called rosettes, and then different shapes to fill in those circles. And these can be adapted in lots of different ways as well. And all of this, I'll make videos of all these carvings as I get going here. Well, of course, there has to be a vertical one just to make things difficult shooting here in the shop with these. I've got this whole mat board clamped up on the front of my cupboard that's underway on the bench there. So this is for the two panels in the carved chest. And as you see there, they fill the whole space. Every square inch of them is carved. And when you first see those patterns, you think, oh, that's too complicated. And so Jeff has laid out the step-by-step drawings for it, and they are a 1/4 scale. They're pretty small, but they have about, what is that one, 7 steps, this one's 8. But it'll show you the geometry and the freehand work to achieve that. And those will each one of those will be a video as well. They might get broken in two because they could start to run a little bit long. They're about, what are they, 10 inches wide? I forget. Yeah, 10 inches by 16 and a half, and then with margins around, so the carved area is 9 by 14 and a half or so, or something like that. And they both contain an urn, a little flower pot that this stems out of. It's not a face. And then there are a couple alternatives to those urns down on the bottom as well. That's page 3 on page 4. Page 4 is where I have the half of a chest front. I had one of these in the first set, so it's just half scale and half the chest, and then it would repeat. So this is the center line right here. That's the 1/2 of a panel, a muntin, another panel. So there'd be 3 panels on the chest and then the carved frame. But the bulk of this one is the strapwork design, something I've had a lot of people waiting for. This is one of the most popular patterns that I carve. And if you don't like the freehand carving, this is for you, because there's lots of registration lines, center lines, vertical divisions, things mapped out of the centers. So I've done them, they're all horizontal, and I've done this and this as box fronts, actually all 3 of those as box fronts, but that one could be part of a chest or a cupboard or something as well. And a shrunk down one that I've used as the top rail of a chair. And I could have gone on and drawn page after page of these, because they have such a almost endless variety of patterns that are interchangeable in there. But these 4 patterns here will get you enough familiarity with it, and then you can adapt them coming and going sort of thing. We had these 4 pages all done, and I decided what we really needed for this strap work is a step-by-step instruction on how to map that out. So that's why there's a 5th page, and I'll show that to you. Here's the step-by-step for the strapwork carvings. And when I first was carving all this oak furniture 30 years ago, I almost never drew anything on paper. I went to the wood and just worked it out there, and made some decorated firewood for a while. So following these along on paper wouldn't be a bad idea for you if you're new to this. And when I do these drawings, I have the carving tools with me. So the various curves of the leaves and things, I'm tracing the actual tool that I used. But then I use a T-square and a drafting square for the straight lines, horizontal lines and the vertical lines. So you could follow all along that and get the outline for this sort of thing. And once you understand that, all those variations on the previous page are very easily done.